Well, 2024 is set to be a record-breaking year for voter turnout in the presidential election, and with Republican primaries taking place, many are wondering the hows and whys of one of the largest voter bases in the country, the rural vote. Clayton Baumgarth set out to talk with experts and some voters about why one name, Trump, is the choice of so many in rural Indiana.
A lot of issues are on the minds of voters this year, including international affairs, abortion rights, climate change, and even democracy itself, the fates of which seem to hang on the outcome of the 2024 presidential election.
There's a cost of living issue, and there's no reason that, we should be living paycheck to paycheck. There's lots of people that make very good money, and they still live paycheck to paycheck.
And just like any other election year, Americans will be presented with two candidates by the time November rolls around. Though he's not the official candidate yet, many rural voters have their hearts set on one former office holder.
Definitely be supporting Trump in this election. It's definitely well worth. I supported him in 2020 when he ran. He has said some things I have not always agreed with, but
Much has happened to former President Donald Trump since he and President Joe Biden last faced off in 2020. Trump lost the election, though still says he won it, and has since been faced with 4 criminal indictments in 4 different cities totaling 91 felony counts.
It's all just a scheme to get rid of him. And in my opinion, it only makes him stronger. It only made me want to vote for him more and more, mainly for the fact that he is going through everything.
Biden, on the other hand, has been criticized for his handling of the rise in inflation, the Israel-Hamas war, and unfulfilled promises, including the cancellation of student loan debt and the codifying of Roe v. Wade. And yes, America will likely be choosing between 2 candidates whose mental and physical health statuses have been heavily questioned, with the 81-year-old Biden and 77-year-old Trump being the oldest presidential nominees of all time.
A lot of people say they don't want to vote because there's nobody even fit to vote for. Which, as an American citizen, you have to vote. You look in countries where you're not even allowed to vote. You got to stand up for your rights.
At the state level, the Republican Party candidates will be running on the issues they hear about most from their constituents, both rural and urban.
You hear a lot about inflation. You hear a lot about the price of goods being out of control. Obviously, people always care about economic opportunity, ability to get jobs, economic progress. And the more and more we get out on the road, obviously, the border.
At the moment, Elsner says the party hasn't thrown its support to any candidate specifically, saying that it's up to the primary voters to tell them who they want to run for the presidency.
I'm always appreciative of the candidates that step forward and run. Obviously, President Trump has had early success in both Iowa and New Hampshire. And so we'll see how that continues. I know Nikki Haley is still at it.
Even though the Republican playing field is still technically wide open, the Indiana Republican Party leader says he would place his bets on Trump becoming the nominee for president.
Just on the momentum from Iowa and New Hampshire, it's certainly looking like President Trump has a lot of momentum and is moving forward with that momentum and is clearly resonating with voters. So we'll see where that ends up.
And while it may be surprising to Democratic voters, many of Trump's most devoted fans have not had their opinions changed by the numerous court cases and indictments.
The fact that he's being targeted, the fact that this fits actually his narrative, and so a large percentage of his base certainly is actually mobilized further because of this, so it doesn't demobilize them.
A recent poll done by Colby College shows 61% of rural Trump voters believe the January 6 charges are, quote, phony, made-up charges to keep him out of office. 92% say a conviction would not change their opinion on the matter. That same poll and Wolf suggests that the key to understanding and perhaps even shifting the rural vote comes down to realizing that much of rural America fears that their way of life is changing, or even that they have been forgotten by the current administration.
We're kind of falsely saying, well, it's economic dislocation, or it's culture wars, or it's the drug addiction. We're losing out on really identifying what the divide is and what people's real political beliefs are that are based on identity, not necessarily one single issue.
Wolf believes that if other candidates or parties could give stronger voice to small communities on a national scale, it could be enough to turn the tide of the election.
Democrats need to make the argument that that the rural way of life is something that America needs.
For Indiana News Desk, I'm Clayton Baumgarth.
Now, according to that same Colby College poll, just 23% of rural voters were familiar with Biden's efforts to rebuild roads and bridges. Around 41% reported hearing nothing at all about investments into broadband internet.